Hello everyone, this is the classification trees video. We have some data here. We have some students, they're grade 12 students. We have whether they plan to get a degree, and then we've got some other, some other variables that I just sort of picked from this data set because they seemed interesting, and some of them may have to do with whether someone plans to get a degree, and some of them may not. We're going to find out. So we have how long it takes the student to get to school, the travel time. We have how highly they scored in a memory game. We have how many occupants are in their home, and we have would they prefer to be happy or rich. And we're going to try to use those to predict using classification trees whether a student will plan to get a degree. So what we're going to do then is we're going to set this up, and we're just going to have whatever variable we're going to split, we're going to have in this column. And just having the same column every time is going to make this easier when we have to copy and paste and stuff. So the split column is here. We're going to just copy, say, travel time to school. We can just copy that into this column. Right? So I'm actually going to start by trying to split based on preferred status, rich versus happy. So this isn't going to work if you have dummy variables. Unless you have dummy variables, right? It's not going to work if you have text. We need to make these zeros and ones, but this is easy, right? Just if this is equal to rich, then we're going to say 1. Otherwise, we're going to say 0, right? So 1 for rich, 0 for happy. We get 1s and 0s. It's just binary. People would either prefer to be rich or prefer to be happy. And we are going to try to split based on that. And so what we're going to do then is normally we would copy all the data, and then we would paste it, and we would sort it, and we would remove duplicates. In this case, that seems unnecessary. I know that the data is just 0s and 1s. So I'm just going to put a 0 here and a 1 there. And then, sorry, this is the data. I'll call this X, right? And then we're going to split it where at 0.5, halfway between 0 and 1. So what we want to do then is we want to count the total number of people below the split. And then we want to get the ones below, the zeros below the split and the ones below the split. Right, so the total number of people below the split is just going to be count if, and then we're counting everyone in this column, which I'm going to make that static. It satisfies a certain criteria, and that criteria is going to be if this value I'm just going to count the ones that are below the split. So the criteria, sorry, I need to do it this way. Quote, less than, end quote, ampersand, this. Right? That'll count the total number of people below the split. There's 40 of them. Right? And I'm also going to want the total above the split. Right? So this is going to be count if, and again, the same range. And I'm going to make that static again. And then the question is going to be, are they above the split? Now, because of the way we do splits, no one should be equal to the split. Right? The split should always split halfway between two numbers. So no one should be equal to the split. So we don't have to worry about greater than or equal, less than or equal. We can just do less than versus greater than, and that should be fine. Right? So oops, I selected the wrong number. I meant to click there. There we go. So we have 40 people below the split and 35 people above the split. Right? What does that mean? That means that below the split was people who said they'd rather be happy. because they had zeros, right? And above the split was people who said they'd rather be rich. So we have 40 people who'd rather be happy and 35 people who'd rather be rich. And now we're going to count how many zeros are below the split. So what we're going to do then is we're going to use count ifs, plural, right? Count ifs. We need to have these people need to actually be below the split, right? So I'm going to make this static again. And so it actually needs to be below the split. But also, they need to plan not to get a degree, right? This, which is also static, needs to be equal to 0. And then here, the ones below the split is going to be the same thing, but it needs to be 1. Right? So this is going to be count ifs. So this, again, needs to be below the split. And also, oops, I missed a comma. Comma here. And also, this needs to be equal to 1. So it's 38, right? So of the people who are below the split, so of the people who say they'd rather be happy than rich, 38 of them plan to graduate and get a degree in college, and 2 of them do not. They plan to only do high school or some college. This plan to get a degree variable was originally a nominal variable with more than 2 outcomes, but I've just made a binary for this example. All right, now we can do the same thing for the zeros below and above this. Sorry, the zeros above and the zeros below. Well, actually, I'm gonna save the above for later. I'm just gonna finish the belows. You can do this in any order. Different orders may have different amounts of copying and pasting you can do. Right, so now I'm going to do the proportion of zeros below the split and the proportion of ones below the split. So this is going to be easy, right? This is just 2 out of 40. And the ones are 38 out of 40. And so then my Gini coefficient is going to be 1 minus brackets this proportion squared plus that proportion squared. You always just square all the proportions and add them up, and then do 1 minus that. Right, so this is my Gini below, and that's pretty low. So that's good. It's good to know that's pretty low. What about the above? So now for the above, we have to do basically the same things, but everywhere we had a less than, we're gonna have a greater than. So I'm just going to make things a little bit easier on myself. See, notice that what I did was I made all of these things static, and the only thing that was moving was this K2, right? So if I actually just make that static in the K, I don't want to make it static up and down because later on I'm going to want to be able to copy and paste that down. But if I just make that static in the column, then we're going to see I'm going to be able to just copy and paste all of this, and it's going to be nice and easy. So if I copy and paste all of these again, obviously I get the same things again. But if I just now go into the formulas and I just change the less thans to greater thans, all of a sudden I'm getting the above the split people. I'm getting everyone above the split. All right, so I can change my names here. Total above split. Zeros above the split. Ones above the split, and so on. So of the people, excuse me, of the people who say they would rather be rich, they're above the split, we have 24 of them planning to get a degree, and 11 of them planning not to. So this gives us a higher Gini, which means it's less predictable than this group. Right? This group, if someone says they'd rather be happy, then you can be pretty confident that they're probably going to want to complete a degree. If they say they'd rather be rich, then, well, there's still more people who want to complete a degree, right? Because we started with a lot more people who want to complete a degree. Out of the 75 people in this data set, only 13 of them are not planning to get a degree. So this is not too surprising, right? We're going to have to maybe split a couple of times in order to figure this out. Excuse me. So we have here the first way to split it. We can split it on whether they plan to get it, on whether they prefer to be rich or prefer to be happy. And the final thing we have to do here is we have to get the overall Gini, or the total Gini, or however you want to call this, the Gini for the whole split. And that's going to be a weighted average. We're going to do the Gini below times the number below plus the Gini above times the number above. And then we're going to take all that and we're going to divide by the total, which is the total below plus the total above. So my overall Gini is 0.252. That's fine. That's my Gini. What we have to do now is we have to see, does splitting it based on other variables give us better results than that? So we have here 3 other variables we're going to try to use. So if you want to save these results so you can compare for later, the easiest thing to do now is just going to be to copy the whole sheet. I'm just going to copy the whole sheet, make a new version of the sheet. So this one was split on rich versus happy. This next one, let's split it on travel time. We'll see if travel time has any impact on whether people plan to get a degree or not. Does this make it more predictable? So the way we're going to do this is we're going to now take my travel time and I'm just going to paste that into my split column here. I'm also going to paste it here for the x's, but here in the x's, I need to sort this. So I need to go sort that smallest to largest, just the current selection. Don't expand the selection, just this selection. It's sort of smallest to largest. And now I also need to remove duplicates, which, sorry, this Zoom interface is blocking a little bit of my screen here. I need to remove duplicates, which is, where is that? There it is, remove duplicates. Okay, so I'm removing duplicates here, and there we go. So now we have only these unique values, and now the splits, I'm not gonna hard code these, I'm just gonna make a formula for these, right? This is gonna be the average of these two. And I'm just gonna zip this all down now, right? Because this split 3 is in between 2 and 4, right? So when I zip this down, the next one's gonna be between 4 and 5, and so on. So everything here, everything can zip all the way down to not quite the bottom, just short of the bottom. This person takes 214 minutes to get to school. That is a very, very long time. I have to wonder if that's potentially a typo. I noticed when I was looking at this data set that in some of the other variables, there were some data that was entered in weird ways in different formats and stuff. So try to clean up your data before you use it, because this does not really seem realistic. Does it really make sense they take 3.5 hours to travel to school? Seems like a lot. Anyway, we have all of these Ginis. Now, I'm looking for whichever one of these Ginis is the smallest. And I can just find it using my eyes, or I can use conditional formatting. What is the conditional formatting? I'm going to do a color scale. And let's just do this. Great, now the white one, that's the lightest. That's the the smallest. Okay, so this one is the best. Now, how does that compare to the other one? This is 0.2663. That one was 0.2518. So this split is better than the travel time split. So now if I just copy this a couple more times, I can quickly get through the other variables and make my final decision on my first split. So let's make a couple more copies here, and let's just do one more. So this split is I'm gonna try splitting based on the memory. And in this one, I'm gonna try splitting based on home occupants. So for the memory game, we're just gonna go in here, we're gonna copy this, we're gonna paste it here, then we're gonna paste it here, and then we're going to sort just the current selection, and we're going to remove duplicates, just the current selection. And then we can see this is a bit bigger, so we need to just zip this down a little further. And we see the minimum is right here. Okay. But that's still worse, right? 0.2768 is still not as good as 0.252. Right? So the travel time and the score in the memory game are not doing as good a job predicting their plans as rich versus happy. And finally, we're going to try home occupants. Going quickly now, we're going to copy these, paste them here, sort them. And remove duplicates. Right, so obviously we have too many rows now, so we're just going to grab the ones we don't need and delete them. And the smallest genie is this one. Again, this is worse, right? 0.28, 0.276, 0.266. These are all small. These are all larger than 0.252. So the first split we tried was actually the best. Whether they prefer to be rich or happy does the best job of predicting their plans. So we're going to make the split based on this. All right, so at this point, we've decided we're making the split based on this. And so none of this stuff is really relevant anymore. These other three sheets, we can kind of just not worry about them anymore. We're only going to worry about this rich versus happy thing. This is our first split. And so what we're going to do now is we're going to make a new sheet based on this one. Copy this. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to have actually two versions of this. The first version, I'm going to have everyone below the split. The second version, I'm going to have everyone above the split. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab all this stuff. Oops, not all of this, just all of this stuff. And I'm going to sort it based on rich versus happy, which is preferred status. I'm going to do the same thing here. Grab all of these, sort it based on rich versus happy, preferred status. And so for the first version, I'm going to do the below the split, the people below the split. In other words, the people who would prefer to be happy. So this is the second split, happy people. And I'm going to take everyone who prefer to be rich, so that's all the people down here. Well, you know what? There's a fifth variable I didn't even try to split on gender. Oops, I meant to split on gender as well. Sorry, let's just quickly do one more split in the first place, because maybe gender is better than rich versus happy. Let's find out. We'll call this gender. And so for the gender, what we need to do is if this is equal to male. Then I'm going to put a 0, otherwise I'm going to put a 1. And we're just going to copy that down. And now we can see of the 38 men in the study, 9 of them do not plan on going to college and getting a degree, completing a degree, and 29 of them do plan on it. Of the 37 women, it's 33 who do plan on it versus 4 who don't. The overall Gini is worse. Rich versus happy is the better split. Okay, so continuing on from there, right? So once we've split on rich versus happy, what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete all the people who prefer to be rich over here. They're all gone. And over here, you know what I should do? I should actually sort it the other direction. I'm going to go back and I'm going to sort the other direction, sort based on Z to A. That way it's very easy for me to just delete all the people who prefer to be happy. Gone, right? So this second split has only the happy people. And this split has only the rich people. So now what I need to do is for each of these, I need to repeat the process. The whole thing, all of the variables, except because I've already split based on preferred status, and because it's binary, it's not possible to split on that variable again. Right? Everyone in this set is already choosing happy. So I can't split on that variable a second time. For variables like memory game, I could split on that multiple times. I could see everyone who goes below a 50 is my first split, and then I could also split everyone who goes below a 30 as my second split. That's possible. But for a binary variable, you can't split a binary variable twice. It only splits once. So we don't have to worry about that. So for the happy people, I'm going to start with, let's just start with gender. We'll start with gender, then travel time, and so on. So if this is equal to male, then I'm going to put a 0. Otherwise, I'm going to put a 1. Copy that down. Because this is already set up with 0s and 1s, this is just working, right? We've got this overall Gini for below. Now that seems really good, but remember, the Gini below was already really good, right? The Gini below was already 0.095. So this split moves it from 0.095 to 0.0875, which is not a big difference. This didn't actually help that much. Although we do see we have a pure node, right? There are no zeros above this split. So if someone says they would prefer to be happy, and if they have a 1 here, so if they are female, then all of those people plan to get a degree. Everyone who prefers to be happy rather than rich and is a female will plan to get a degree. Of the men who prefer to be happy rather than rich, it's 14 versus 2. Okay, so that is, so this part would be impossible to split further. This part, it would be possible to split further. Okay, so this is what we get for that group, right? And so this time this is my second split. It's the happy people, and I'm splitting based on gender. So now I'm going to do the same thing again. And I know I'm making so many sheets. Oops, I meant to copy. Now I'm going to split them based on travel time. Right, so we've done this bunch before. We grab all the travel times. We paste them here. We paste them here. We sort this. We remove duplicates. We zip everything down. Whoops, that's not coded in properly yet. Hold on, average. I copied the sheet that had that hard coded. Zip that down. There we go. Okay, so now we're looking here. Again, we can use our conditional formatting. The minimum is here, 0.926. That's not very good, right? Splitting based on gender was better. Gender got us 0.0875. This gets us 0.926. Right? Repeat, repeat. A lot of repetition here because I have so many things to split on. Right? On your assignment, I narrowed down the things you have to split on to make it a little bit easier on you. Okay, so after splitting based on travel, we're going to split based on memory. Right, and if you're wondering when is this going to end, well, I'm only going to do 2 splits. But there's still a little while to go. I need to split on memory, and then I need to split on home occupants, and then I'm done the first part of the second split. I was splitting based on memory and based on occupants. So for memory, we grab everyone. Now, it's not necessarily necessary to keep all these sheets, right? It's also possible that, you know, once you've done the thing for memory or for whatever, you just make a note somewhere else of what was the genie and where was the split. And then you move on and then you redo it on the same sheet. Just making notes somewhere else. That's totally fine if you don't want to have so many sheets cluttering things up. I'm just keeping all the sheets so that I have a record of every single thing I did. It's not necessarily necessary to do it that way. All right, so sort, remove duplicates. Grab all these, paste them down there. Okay, here's the best split, but still 0.09. That's not as good as 0.0875. And that's the occupants. Sorting. Removing duplicates. Getting rid of the stuff we don't need. 0.0866. Okay, that's closer. In fact, that's better, right? 0.0866 is slightly better than 0.0875. So we are looking at this row. That is the split. I should split the happy people, right? Of the people who prefer to be happy rather than rich. The second split I should make should be to split it on people who have either 2 or 3 occupants in their household versus people who have 4 or more occupants in their household. Right? The people who have 4 or more occupants in their household, all of them, all 25 of them are planning to get a degree, whereas out of the 15 who choose to be happy rather than rich and have fewer than 4 people, who have 3 or 2 people in their household, there's 13 of them plan on it and versus 2 who don't. And that's the best genie I can get for this second split. Okay, so that's of the happy people. So right, we've got all people, and now I'm splitting it into the people who prefer to be happy versus the people who prefer to be rich. Right? And then other people who prefer to be happy, I need to split those up. And I'm going to split those into less than 4 occupants versus greater than or equal to 4 occupants. Right? So I can split this way and then this way, but now I need to split the rich people, the people who prefer to be rich rather than happy. Where do they split? So now I'm going over to this sheet, and this sheet where I only have the rich people, I'm going to do the same thing I did with the happy people. All right, so to start with, I'm going to split on gender. and then travel, memory, occupants. Right, so if this is equal to male, then 0, otherwise 1. Zip that down, and I see my Gini is 0.4309. That's not great. Remember my split, my Gini above the split to begin with, after the first split, was 0.431. So we're looking to improve on 0.431. This one is 0.431. It's like this tiniest, slightest improvement. Really not great. Okay, so if someone prefers to be rich rather than happy, knowing their gender doesn't seem to help you like at all. The Gini's barely improved. So let's try something else. Right, so that was splitting on gender. We're gonna do this again. But this time instead of splitting on gender, it's gonna split on travel. Right, so copy all these over here, over here. Sort. Remove duplicates. Fix that formula, because that's the wrong formula. It needs to be average of these. And then zip everything down. Put back on my conditional formatting to help me here. Okay, there we go. This is 0.402. This is 0.403. So this one is the best. I think that's the best one. That's better than gender, but not by a lot, right? Remember 0.41, 0.413 was what we had before. Oh no, 0.431. 0.431 was what we had before. This is 0.402. So it's a bit better. It's a bit better. It's not nothing. So now we're gonna copy this again. So instead of travel, what if we split based on occupants? Or no, memory is next. Memory then occupants, right? All right, so score in the memory game. Just zip that down. Okay, that's quite a bit better, isn't it? 0.342. That's much better than the 0.431 we had before. So this is making maybe a more significant improvement, right? If we split of the people who prefer to be rich rather than happy, if we split them based on their score in a memory game, that helps make things a bit more predictable. Because now we can see that above the split, everyone who prefers to be rich and scored very high in the memory game, none of them plan to go get a degree. All three of them plan not to get a degree. And of the people who would rather be rich, the ones who scored worse in the memory game, 24 of them plan to get a degree versus 8 who don't. Right, so this split seems pretty decent, right? Not amazing. It's still not super easy to predict, but at least we have something here. And one more try, just in case the number of occupants ends up being better. We don't know that this is the best yet. We have to try the last variable. So we're going to split based on occupants. Here, here. And then we're going to sort. Remove duplicates. Get rid of the stuff I don't want. And we see, it's not bad either, 0.374, right? But 0.343 is actually the best, right? So splitting based on memory game score is the best. So the split point is here, 53.5. right? So if we go back to where do we have that little picture I had done? Right here, right? So here we're gonna split memory less than 53.5 versus memory greater than 53.5. Right? So of the people who prefer to be happy, if we split them based on number of occupants in the house, it's 2 no versus 13 yes. So we would predict yes. We would predict that they were planning to get a degree. If it's more than 4 occupants, that's 0 no versus 25 yes. So we would predict yes. And then other people who prefer to be rich, the ones who scored lower in the memory game, I don't remember exactly what that was. This was 3 no and 0 yes. The ones who scored higher, I remember that. And so that was, we would predict no. And here, if there's I'll just look back over here. The split rich based on memory, right? It was 3-0, and then over here was 8-24. We're predicting yes. Right, so if we have a new student and we know that they would prefer to be happy rather than rich, then we can split them based on occupants, but it kind of doesn't matter because we're going to predict that they will finish a degree either way. Right, both of these splits do end up with the same conclusion, although if we were to keep going, split these based on maybe memory, maybe based on travel time, maybe based on something else, maybe we'd be able to get a different answer here. Right? But so far with these splits, if they prefer to be happy rather than rich, we are going to predict yes, they would plan to get a degree. If they would prefer to be rich rather than happy, then we would split them again based on their score in the memory game. The ones who scored very high, right? These three, if so, anyone who scores bigger than 53.5, we would predict that they would not plan to get a degree. And anyone who scores lower than 53.5, we would predict that yes, they do plan to get a degree. Okay, so that's 2 splits. We could keep splitting, right? Depending on our stopping conditions. If our stopping conditions is we don't stop until maybe we have a minimum number, a minimum size before we split, right? So maybe we'll only split if we have we won't split if we have fewer than 5 people in a category. Well, then this category and this category would still potentially be ready to split. Right? We might split these based on something else. Right? These ones we don't have to split. They're already pure, right? Nobody here is saying no. Everyone's saying yes. Nobody here is saying yes. Everyone's saying no. Right? So those ones were done. Okay, so that's 2 splits. That's so on your assignment, you have fewer variables to worry about, right? I narrow things down for you for the assignment, so you're not doing quite as much work because it's really it's been a long video. I've been doing the same thing repetitively for quite a while. It is boring. So I've narrowed down the number of variables for you for your assignment, and you will have to do the 2 splits though. And the other thing on your assignment is, of course, it's not just no versus yes. We have 3 categories. But you can figure that out. We're gonna have, if you have 0s, 1s, and 2s, then you're gonna have 0s below the split, 1s below the split, and 2s below the split. And then you can get proportion of 0s, proportion of 1s, and proportion of 2s. And then you can put all 3 of those together into the Gini. All right, you'll still have a Gini below, Gini above, overall Gini, all that stuff will be the same. Okay, so this is it. This is my That's the classification trees in Excel. This one is kind of slow, kind of a lot of manual stuff. Especially compared to some of our other things, which are much more automated. Anyway, I'll see you all in the next video.